Speaker.
Speaker.
I call Stuart Nash.
Thank you much, Mr. Speaker. As someone who I assume is going to contest a by-election in a couple of months, I would have thought that that member would have taken more time than simply 2.5 minutes to practice speaking. But anyway, that's the way it is. I stand to support the Land Transport Amendment Bill, and there are 6 points that I would like to make. But, Mr. Speaker, what I would like to say is I think that this bill has some fantastic initiatives. I'm really interested to see what the experts around the nation have to say when they present in front of the Select Committee. But on the face of it, there's some really good things here. What I want to do is work through them, but then make a final comment. The first thing is these interlockers. I actually think this is a fantastic idea. In fact, I would almost like to see these compulsory on every car. Certainly in cars driven by people with P plates and learner licences. It's a great idea. You know, drink driving is unacceptable in this day and age, but there is still too much of it. And let's accept the proposition that when people are drinking, their judgment is impaired. And it's not just their judgment on, driving down the road in a straight line, it's whether they should drive or not. What this does, what an interlocker does, is it's a device that you blow into. If there's any alcohol detected, then it locks the car. You can't drive it. Fantastic. Again, but let's see if it does work, because the small measures in the bill will, I suppose, provide a trial. And if it works, then we can have an evidence-based approach on how we roll this out across the country, perhaps. The second thing, Mr. Speaker, is fleeing from police. We're going to increase the penalties on this. Again, great idea. There are 3 reasons that have been given in the bill for why this is in here. The first one is that it'll deter drivers. I have my doubts about that, to be fair, Mr. Speaker. I think all the evidence shows that when people are committing a crime, they don't think about the consequences because they always think they're going to get away with it. The second thing is it'll reduce the number. Again, I have my doubts because, like I mentioned just 2 seconds ago, I think when people are committing a crime, the last thing that goes through their heads is a rational decision around the odds of being caught versus not being caught. But the third objective, which I completely agree with, is to send a very clear message that fleeing from police is totally unacceptable and is a serious crime. Now, Mr. Speaker, there has been a number of debates. Well, there's a debate every time this happens and a driver crashes. Luckily, in the last 2 that I can remember, no innocent bystanders being killed, but the risk every time someone flees a police car is that not only will they kill themselves, which is enough of a tragedy, but they'll kill an innocent driver or an innocent pedestrian. And the thing is it also puts the lives of police at risk. Now, as the police spokesperson, I'm asked every time there is a media comment on this, do I agree there should be chases or not? What I do believe, Mr. Speaker, is that the police use their discretion. And I think they do that very well, and I back the police on this. But what I also believe is this is a serious offence. It must be taken seriously, and the message we must send is it is totally unacceptable to flee the police. The bottom line is you're going to get caught anyway. You're probably going to get done. If you flee, then you've obviously done something seriously wrong. Just stop and take consequences, for goodness sake. The third thing, Mr. Speaker, is fare evasion. Now, I actually didn't know until I read the bill that it's actually, there is no obligation when you are asked, when a passenger is asked to prove that they have bought a ticket, that they have to. No obligation to do that, no obligation to give their name and address as well. So they can be absolutely belligerent. The conductor or someone comes up and says, "Sir, can I have a look at your ticket to prove you purchased it?" Don't have to show it, don't have to give your name and address, which seems a little weird. So I think this is a good, this is good because it means that you do have to provide proof of purchase. If you can't provide proof of purchase, then you are required to give your name and address. Just makes sense, really. Pragmatic approach. The fourth point is the update to the heavy vehicle registration. I listened very carefully to my colleague Sue Moroney's thoughtful words on this, and I must admit, Mr. Speaker, I will need to hear what the experts say before I'm sold on this initiative. And the thing that people don't realise is, in fact, the wear and tear on the roads of these heavy vehicles is significant. It's not a linear curve. You've got a small car here versus a big truck. It's linear. It is exponential. In fact, the wear and tear on our roads from these large trucks is significant. And so we need to understand the cost benefit around this, and if it is going to increase productivity or if not, and the cost to our roading infrastructure. So this will be interesting to hear this, at this point will be interesting to hear the submissions. Taxis, fifth point, well, it ensures competition. Competition is a good thing. Yeah, we can't argue with that. It engages in technology and it updates the regulatory system to the 21st century. And I think what it does do is it takes into account the disruptive business models we're beginning to see in this industry. And that is only fair in my view. But again, it'll be interesting to hear what the submitters have to say, because I suspect this is going to be hotly contested, and I suspect there'll be some very thoughtful submissions presented to the Select Committee on the taxi regulation. Mr. Speaker, the last point I would like to make, and something I'll spend a little bit more time on the rest, is actually police resourcing. Because by and large, what we are going to ask the police to do is ensure that they are the ones that enforce the vast majority of provisions in this bill. And the irony, Mr. Speaker, would have been about 2 months ago where the Police Minister herself said that about 111 police are going to be taken off the road. Now, I must admit the irony of 111 police taken off the roads wasn't lost on a lot of people. But the thing that we know is that having officers on the road acts as a deterrent itself. And we all know, if we're driving along at 103 k's an hour and we see a police officer, we'll slow down to 100 k's an hour, because I know that no one in this House drives over 103 k's an hour, but you know what I mean. It acts as a very serious deterrent. You take those police officers, not you, we take the police officers off the road and there is no deterrent at all. So I am really concerned, Mr. Speaker, that what we are doing is we are loading up the police with yet more work. And the interesting thing is, in the latest workplace survey, 55% of police said they had unacceptable levels of workplace stress. And 60% of police officers actually said they do not believe they are delivering on the promises they make to the public. But the interesting thing about the survey, Mr. Speaker, is over 80% of police said that they enjoyed their work, and 80% of police said that they had a commitment to the New Zealand Police Force. So what we've got here is a group of highly professional men and women who want to do what's right. They know what's right. They want to have the tools to get out there and make it happen, but they're just under-resourced. So highly engaged, highly committed, but a hell of a lot of stress and not meeting promises. Mr. Speaker, as mentioned, this bill does some really good things, but there is no way we are going to be able to enforce this if we continue to cut policing resources. And the interesting thing, Mr. Speaker, is in the 2016 to 2020 Police Strategic Plan, signed off by the Commissioner and signed off by the Minister on the 27th of May this year, it actually highlighted the fact that there's a slight drop in police numbers from 2014 to 2015, and then from 2016 to 2020, there were no more police. No more police. And yet we're dealing with a force that says themselves we are stressed, that says with themselves we cannot meet the promises we make to the public. They want to. They work hard. They're committed to their communities and they're committed to the people of New Zealand, but there aren't the resources. Luckily, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Police and the Prime Minister himself have come out and said, look, maybe we got it wrong in that strategic plan. We are now requiring police to investigate every single burglary instead of 70% in the past. As a consequence of that, Mr. Speaker, we need more police on the street. We need more police in our communities, and we need more police on the front line. But the thing I would say is it's all very well to come into this House and say to the media, yes, we need more police, but it's different actually delivering on that promise. And before this bill passes through this House, Mr. Speaker, what we need, I believe, is a firm commitment of how many police and when they're going to come online, because there's no point in passing this law through the House if there aren't the men and women out there to enforce it. So just to sum up, Mr. Speaker, I think there are some great initiatives here. I think there are some pragmatic pieces of legislation in this Act. I'm looking forward to hearing what the Select Committee and the submitters say. But, and that's a really big but, I think we are wasting our time putting these measures in place if there aren't the men and women on the front line to enforce it. Mr. Speaker, we need more police in our community, and we need a firm commitment from the Minister of Police and the Prime Minister around when these police are going to arrive, how many, and where they're going to be deployed. Thank you very much.